calling back. We're going to try to give her a call again, and then she just added another phone number to the 13-year-old grandson who's possibly with the daughter. Step out with this.
2412.
Veteran crisis hotline's calling in, so they have a female veteran's off her medication. She's at work to Safe Haven. Detecting 12, take a check that one out.
6-1 bullet, 2-1 start, take a shot.
Also still stands for talk? No.
Offender in custody.
Thanks. Anyone else close by just let me know. First number. 10-4. Detecting 12, take a check that one out.
6-1 bullet, 2-1 start, take a shot.
Also still stands for talk? No.
Offender in custody.
Thanks. Anyone else close by just let me know.
10-5.
3-3. I'm going to let a supervisor know that I have a case report with him.
Danny stated that father and the owner of the vehicle
Good evening, good evening. Oh, getting a little bit of feedback, saying good evening. And thank you all for joining. Appreciate you. What's up, Audrey, Kathy?
Great being here, CJ. How are you? How's everyone in chat? All mods? Audrey, long time no see.
Yeah, I was excited. I was excited for this evening, especially to talk about all these court documents and stuff. You guys had a great show, Audrey and Kathy. They just were over at Audrey's channel, and I'll be dropping their links throughout the show. Let me put these up there for you. And there was a couple things that you guys were discussing. One of them was the photo of the car that the photo they should have got, right? And when it comes to what they put out there, oh, it's covering your face. Hold on one second. Let me do this. There we go.
There we go.
There we go. When it comes to the photo, right, that they've, you know, the Ridge Road and, you know, let's be honest, the shit quality cameras, when you could have some of the best photos possible, especially if somebody's driving all throughout the city in both Pullman and Moscow, driving throughout the city, you know, just joyriding, really not even taking the most tactical route, not even taking the quickest route, because they drove all around in both towns before. So it's like, who goes joyriding, you know, especially if you know digital forensics and footprints and all these other things, and that's what you're going to school for too. I mean, you know, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I was going through some of my old photos a couple days ago because I'm trying to start. This was in the very beginning when I started doing my show, and literally back then there was no organization when it came to this stuff because I didn't think I was going to need to have it organized, but it's gotten to a point where I have like a bazillion folders in all sorts of different places. So I'm starting to go through some of my old stuff, and I wanted to show you guys something. They don't usually, you know, stock photos.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Usually you don't get that. But I wanted to show, yes, they do put out stock photos. This is a photo from a long time ago. Stock photo, right? Stock photo, Moscow police. Okay. But when it comes to what they did, they also put out a photo that, you know, hey, it's not the, thank you for the stock
There you
photo,
go.
right?
There you go.
Thank you for the stock photo. But again, where was this picture? And thank you all for hopping in. I was going through some of these old pictures, you know, and I'm like, oh, since we talked about this tonight, I was in chat and they were on panel discussing it, and it became a topic. I was like, okay, let's I remember I went through this folder here. So this is the photo that they should have been able to get to, because like I said, when you're driving all over in here, let me pull up the video of it just so you can see the map. I'm not even going to play the video. I'm just going to show you the map. And then I'm going to show you the clarity that they should have got for this vehicle if they were driving around all of these cameras. And so when I pull up this map, you'll see it right there, okay? You're driving all over Pullman there, and then especially Moscow. I mean, look at that.
Right.
Going all the way over to the other side. You're going to the east side, and then you're coming back around. You know, okay. And I have a development when it comes to the A&W photo that they got him to as well. When I was going through some of my old footage I never put out, I came across some really interesting things when it comes to even further discussing how they couldn't even got a camera from that A&W. But back to this, when it comes to the photo, so you see that route, it's all over downtown, it's over major streets. You see my route that I did with the footage. You can literally see all the cameras, the major intersections, the most well-lit areas of both of these towns. This is where this person drove. And so they should have been able to get, and this is a photo in Moscow, they should have been able to get a photo as clear as this.
Yeah.
Okay? Right? They should have. And there's plenty of cameras like that. You can watch them live. Shout out Caddy. Back then, I was out there on location. I was starting to dig into it because when I was out on location, I did that drive and I'm like, whoa, this don't make sense. This don't make sense. So we started to look back then. We started to dig. What kind of photo would they have then? Because as I did this route, there's no way they didn't have a photo. So then shout out Caddy. She dug this up in the very beginning. Here's CJ. Here's live links. We watched them live. We could watch these cameras live. Like,
I mean,
live.
look at the clarity from overhead. So thank you, CJ, for your research, because now we know that Moscow Police Department knows that, sure, fine, perfectly fine to use this stock image, but you should have the actual car that you're looking at as well. So they know that. So it raises questions. Why did they hide this car? They've never released an official image of suspect vehicle 1. The only reason why the public has what appears to be described in the PCA is because the defense released it in one of their in limine motions recently. So as of today, it's a year, 2.5 years since the crimes occurred. The public has never been privy to an official photo of suspect vehicle 1 from the Moscow Police Department, from the state of Idaho, and I don't understand it.
I mean, look at this photo right here. You're gonna tell me you couldn't put they did for this vehicle.
Right.
They did for this vehicle.
I remember, just looking at their Facebook, I don't know, maybe a year ago, give or take a month, and they were looking for someone that had speeded through Moscow, and they published a photo of the actual car. I mean, who publishes stock images when there's so much video? It wasn't a matter of, the PCA just talked about this car outside of 1122 King Road, as you just showed, CJ. This was an extensive look at that. I mean, imagine if the public would have been able to see SV1 soon after the crimes occurred. And the arguments why they hid it for this long and still are makes no sense to me. I mean, this is one of the reasons that got him arrested, the thought that it was Brian Kohberger's car, which we've all seen many times. We've yet to see a photo of Brian Kohberger's car released by Moscow Police Department or the state of Idaho as being SV1.
Well, I mean, when it comes to any of this information, I mean, just with all the press conferences, right? You can go from the very beginning where they're telling you the same thing that they're telling you in the middle of December.
Right.
Same thing. The only thing that changes is we got this many tips and we got this many calls and we got this many this and we got this many this. But they still answer the same thing. The only thing that changed was the first 2 weeks. It was a Nissan Sentra. Then it changed to a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. And then it, because all the way up through the 2/3 into December, they were still telling you. I mean, shoot, the day before they arrested Kohberger, they put out a press release saying they were still looking for a 2011 to 2013. That's why I feel like they put out the press release the morning of the 29th, and then later on that early afternoon, all of a sudden it became BK. Because how are you still putting out a press release on
Right.
December 29th that you don't have a suspect and you're still looking for a 2011 to 2013. That doesn't
Right.
make sense. It
And
doesn't make sense.
it's almost like they wanted to confuse people because they put out a stock image of two cars, CJ, as you know, one with a sunroof, one without a sunroof. We've seen Brian Koberger's car. It does not have a sunroof. Why are you publishing a photo, a stock image of a car that does not have a sunroof if you're then going to tell the public that Koberger's car was SV1? They should have had a photo of the actual car blown up at every press conference, if only to say, stay away. If you're in the immediate area, stay away from this car. Period end, for
Hmm.
safety reasons.
Yeah. Especially all of the kids that are there, the young adults. You know what I'm saying? That's half your population in Moscow.
Right. And they're not
Like
necessarily familiar
18
with
to
the area.
22. You know what I mean?
Right.
18 to 22. That's the people that are your page, they're the ones that show up for your business to succeed. I mean,
Right.
like you got to think about the children. And
Look at
when
the Chapin, children. They were dropped off there, I think, when they were 19, the three of them. They don't know the area. They're not from there. They're from another state. So and there was, like you said before, I remember you had the conversation. What about the mother who's having to run to, the supermarket to get formula for the baby? Working people, that are getting out of their cars and having to walk to their apartments or their homes for safety reasons. You put out, I think it would have been a good idea to put out a photo of that car immediately, and then we learn that there was a witness ID. Get somebody to come in and do a sketch. These people that do these artist renditions are amazing what they can draw out of witnesses. And you see 9 times out of 10 when they arrest the person, holy Toledo, did that look exactly like him or her?
well, I mean, let's be honest, when you have a whole bunch of different statements, it's to put out a description. I'm sure the guy was probably like, "Okay, what do you want me to go with here?" Right? Um, look, she was intoxicated. You know what I mean? Like, how are we supposed to come up with this? I have a poll out there. I want to ask you guys. I asked it this morning, and I want to ask you guys on panel. I'm curious, and it's a question, and then it has a question beyond that for only a particular part of the audience. So my question is, and there's a poll, so please vote. How many of you have consented your DNA for ancestry purposes? Okay. And if you have, I would like to know yes or no in chat. 1 or 2. 1 is yes, 2 is no, whatever you want to put. I'd like to see that in chat. Also, if you have, do you regret it? And so I'm going to ask you two, Kathy first. Have you ever submitted your DNA for ancestry purposes? And if you have, do you regret it?
I took that chat as soon as it jumped up. No, I've never submitted for ancestry. I could care less who my ancestors are to have my DNA floating around like that. But I have a very, very close relative who did. She wanted to find out who our ancestors were. So she donated her DNA. And I asked her that very question, do you regret it? And she's like, after I heard about this case, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Even though I checked the box not to share it. Yeah, I do very much.
I see a lot of 2s. Holy crap. I mean, I haven't. You know what I'm saying? I've always said, I was the first one that talked about the damn coffee because when it came to 21 skin cells and touch transfer, I was like, I love window shopping. Okay, I love garage sales. I love picking up things, and something might be old and nostalgic. Something might be, I wonder how this works. My mind's always thinking. And so I would usually go to a store. I'll pick up something, look at it, whatever. Ever since this case, I was like, oh hell no.
No,
I ain't buying a loaf of bread unless I really want a loaf of bread.
You know what? And it's so easy now to just have them deliver it to your house, you know, with meals. And we learned that through COVID, how, but of course, I
Yeah,
mean,
but
once in a while you want to go out and mingle with people, and you got to worry about, oh, I'm going to reach into the, to grab that orange juice that's behind two other cartons.
I'm just
And now I got to worry about that,
well,
one's going
Kathy.
to.
Kathy, I was like, because like coffee cups, I love coffee. I just, I'm like,
I
hey,
get
what if I went to a store and I looked at that coffee cup and then I touched it and I was like, nah, I don't really, I looked at a whole bunch of them, right? And then somebody goes to Walmart and picks up that same coffee cup, does the nasty thing when they get home, and they don't wash it, but they
right.
put they put, oh, I can't wait to drink some coffee. They just get in the car and they put some coffee in it. Ugh, you got to wash it first. But anyway, they start drinking their coffee. All of a sudden, all of my touch is on their hand from the cup. And then all of a sudden they go home and they're grabbing their microphone stand and they're talking to their people, and all of a sudden somebody comes in and blah, 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 and then they start dusting this off and they're like, who's this CJ guy? Hell no.
And then it's
No.
darned if you then you got to be worried, CJ, because of this case. Okay, well, I'm going to start wearing gloves when I go out all the time, including, in Florida during the summer. I'm going to wear gloves in 90-degree heat, 100% humidity. And then people are going to do like with the, oh, well, she's walking around with gloves on, she's separating her garbage into little Ziploc bags. She's a criminal, so it's like you can't win for losing.
I'm not going that far. I'm just like, it just changed how I shop. I'll look at it from a distance and okay, yeah, I think that's a good one. Yeah. And I'll go ahead and pick it up. But I mean, it changed how I shop. So when it comes to the DNA, if you have, let me know. Do you regret it? What about you, Audrey? Have you ever submitted it? And if you have, do you regret it?
So at first it was like $99 for Ancestry, and I didn't want to pay the $99. So that's when I taught myself about SNPs and haplogroups, and I figured out which part of the world I was from. But then eventually I wanted to, I was looking into dual citizenship for Italy, and my grandfather was born there, and they have this, I forgot what it was called. It's something that you can apply for if your grandparent had come over here for the war and they neutralized their citizenship. So then I did do it. And after learning everything about this case, I absolutely do regret it. For one, I didn't realize law enforcement did that. I think I did opt out. And two, when we were learning about the SNPs and the IGG, the only type of DNA that I know of that goes, I think CC Moore had mentioned this, that they get degraded DNA. They get damaged DNA, and that's what they're working with to build it up. And we recently, it came to my attention, and I think all of you too, that wrongful convictions can happen. And so now I do not want to be a genetic witness because I don't want me and my DNA to put away an innocent person. So I absolutely do regret that. And it's been a little scary to have that realization that happens, and the police break the policies of their policies and the policies of these ancestry websites. It's a big mess.
I think one thing that this case did is brought that issue to front and center of the conversation, because there's no way people would be having this conversation but for this case.
Yeah, I mean, really, and I was bringing it up the last couple weeks about wanting to go into the CC Moore episode when she was on the Presumption podcast, because that was a really good episode. And I know when it comes to the IGG and the touch DNA. It's all confusing, and really a lot of it is shock value. Because when you hear that, you automatically think guilty as F. But when
Right.
you know, it is a lot to understand. But I really feel like Cece Moore, she's the best in the business when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to that. And I really feel like we should go through that episode. I'd love to have you guys on when we do it. Because I think it's very
Well, I'd love
informative
to.
and it's something we can go back to.
Mm-hmm.
It's something we covered a couple years ago, but I think it's something that would be great to go back to and kind of refresh
Well,
and
and yeah,
you know,
especially,
kind
I
of
mean,
help.
a couple of these, 2, 3 of these motions in limine that are right, the right in the middle of the briefings are dealing with the DNA. I mean, so this has a lot of people thought, oh well, the suppression motion regarding a
Mhm.
DNA suppression under Fourth Amendment that failed. Probably not going to come up again, and here it is. It's the topic of, I think, 3 in limine motions right now.
Mhm. Yeah, there's, and I'm glad that it's in Boise. I'm glad that, Judge Hippler doesn't mess around. He's, no BS. Let's get to the point. Let's get it
Right.
done. Let's move on. Let's be about the truth. I really feel like he's starting to realize a lot of the stuff that, we've all kind of said from the beginning,
Yeah.
because when you look at it from under the surface, a lot of it didn't make sense. And a lot of negativity came from that because we were speaking out about that from the very beginning. And now you're starting to see, and I think he's starting to see, why is this even sealed? You know, even
Right.
even the parents, even Steve G. Why was the 911 even sealed?
Big
Right?
advocate for transparency. Was all of his family. They actually they were the first ones out of the gate to try to do something about that gag order. Even
Yeah.
before the
Yeah.
media coalition, and he's come
Yeah.
on my channel and said, anything the secrecy, this non-dissemination order, anything that good that it meant to do, it went in the other direction, unfortunately. So I for one, I agree with you. I think CJ probably took Hippler a few months, because this
Yeah.
file was enormous when he
Oh
got it
yeah.
already,
Oh yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
And he's got
Oh yeah.
access. He's got access to everything. He
Well, and
sees everything.
the
So
last thing you want to do is step on another judge's toes either, and say so when they get that, they also put that into consideration, like, even though he was a a, a, a judge that was way up in the middle of nowhere, and he's from a big city, according to, in their standards, that, you're still going to respect the other judge,
right,
uh even if now you're starting to see. But yeah, there's so much to it, and that's the thing. Let's throw a whole bunch and just everybody's like, oh, but really it's just a bunch of little bits of nothing that we're starting to see. I mean, even just the tip, I've been mentioning they just took the tip since a few months after when we started digging into the PCA in early 2023, and I'm like, they just took the tip, you guys. Like, this is what I'm seeing, and you're
mm,
starting to see that now too. They just took the tip. That's it. That's it. Typically, he's got a question for you, Kathy.
mm,
Uh, do you think the main? Why does IndyZone
ah.
think the main trial will start earlier in July? Really?
No, not earlier in July. I think that if you look at the pretrial and trial order, it's I call it the blueprint of the case. It's what controls everything, including the in limine motion schedule and the suppression motions and things that are about to happen, like the proposed jury questionnaires. I think that the true start of the trial is July 30th, and looking at Judge Stephen J. Hippler's order, because that is voir dire. That's when all of the summoned jurors that get those notifications appear at the Ada County Courthouse at this time, 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is, on July 30th for this trial. That's the start of the trial, not as far as I'm concerned, not August 11th. August 11th, I think what Judge Hippler is talking about is that's when the case in chief from the prosecution, also called the guilt phase, that's when that starts, when Hippler is going to turn to the prosecution and said, you have the floor now. Now go ahead and convince why. That's why we're here. That's why we've been following this case for, it's going to be almost 3 years in December. Get up there and explain away, beyond a reasonable doubt, evidentiary standard, 5 first-degree felonies. The case can't start without the jury, and that jury selection process is absolutely crucial.
Oh yeah, another reason I'm glad it moved to Boise. For real.
Oh,
And shout
yeah.
out Pam J. Thank you for being a member for 8 months. And she says, "Don't touch my
Yay.
DNA." Hi, CJ, and thank you. Appreciate
Hey,
it.
Pam.
One thing I want to show here in the background as we're talking about, I'm not going to show Pullman because really I want to show you we're getting into Moscow and we'll continue
Okay.
to talk. We'll continue to talk, but I want to play this for you guys. This is getting into Moscow, and I want to show you all of the going all over the city streets and all this other stuff just to get to the crime scene. So there's that playing in the background. So yeah, it is cool, with the DNA submission. I always wanted to in the very beginning when I first heard about it. I was like, oh, that's cool, because really I don't know half of my family, right? And so I was like, oh, that'd be so neat to find out, like my other relatives and stuff like that. And but it was just always really I'm like, I'm not paying that much
Right.
but and after that I just never even thought about it anymore, honestly. And then when this case came out, it was like, oh wow. I'm glad I didn't.
CJ, I'm sorry, you raised such a great point because a few years back, I don't think more, maybe like 5 years ago or something, they were really pushing like 23andMe, these Ancestry, all of this stuff. They had television shows. I don't know if they still do, where they bring in, a Hollywood star or something, sit them down, and we're going to find your ancestors and all this other stuff. And who was thinking, that it could lead to a false conviction or your DNA being out there, what the bad side of it was. No one talked about that. And it took this case, I think, maybe some people did if you were into DNA, maybe, but I certainly hadn't. I had heard about, I have a close relative who took one of those tests, but it wasn't, my consciousness wasn't raised to the dangers that are out there regarding, so many people. I think there was like millions of people now in these databases with their DNA somewhere.
Oh yeah. And if they're not having to, it's like Bob Motta said, you better have what you say you have when you're
Right.
going. I mean, I gotta reach out to Bob Motta. I would love to have him on because me and him feel exactly the same with a lot of this stuff, and I don't know if he's been out there. It sounds like he has, but I would love to be able to just sit back and talk about this case with him, especially with how he sees things, because I see it the
Right.
exact same way being out there. And I came across Mark Carver's case, Barry Shep, that was one of OJ's,
Right.
the DNA guy for OJ, the Innocence Project. If you look up Mark Carver's case, it's a case that we came across a couple years ago when it comes to that, and that's scary, and that's one of the reasons why I did change the way that I shopped, because when you are you guys familiar with Mark Carver's case? Is anybody familiar with it?
No, CJ, I'm not.
Okay. Basically, so I did a read through of the article. I'll drop the link in chat for you in a few.
Okay.
But if you look it up, Mark Carver, Innocence Project, him and his, I think it was his cousin. It's been a couple years since I read it. Him and his cousin, no, not the ambulance guy. Check this out. Mark Carver, him and his cousin, a family member, were out fishing Okay, they were out fishing, and about 300 yards away, there was a lady that was unalived in her vehicle. Okay, and so the cops pull up. They're looking at it. They're investigating it. She's already passed away. And so they start canvassing the area, and they run across Mark Carver and his family member, his cousin. I'll just say his cousin. Hey, what's going on? Hey, did you guys happen to hear anything? No, we've been out here for, this long. We're just out here fishing. We didn't hear anything, your officer. Oh, okay. Just a simple interview. Okay, well, this lady down there, she, we found her, da, da, da. Here's my information. If you know anything or if, remember anything, give us a call. Shook his hand.
Oh.
And then walked back to the crime scene, right?
Oh no.
So then this officer, without gloves, goes to the back door of the lady's car and opens up the door.
Wow.
All of a sudden, when they get it back to forensics, and all of a sudden, Mark Carver's touch DNA was placed underneath that door handle. And so they were charging him and his cousin for the crime.
Wow.
And his cousin was so stressed out from it that he passed away from a heart attack the day before the trial. Mark Carver went to prison for 10 years.
Oh
and
my God.
Mark Carver, his own, it's the case where they say the DNA that convicted him was also the DNA that exonerated him.
Wow.
Mark Carver. Yeah.
We'll look that case up. That's scary. Scary.
It is, and it can really happen. I'll drop the link for you guys. Look, you guys can see. You think the person that committed this crime is going all through downtown when they really just could have hooked a right after they seen Walmart?
Look at all these cameras, all these and it's lit. It's well lit. And then aren't there the cameras that will take a picture of your driver's license if you blow a stop sign? Why would you take this route when there was another route? The other end of the argument was, well, he was fairly new to the area. He'd only been living there a few months. Maybe he didn't know how there was a back road that would have concealed him more, which I think, okay, that's a plausible thing. The other argument is, well, maybe he just went by there not intending to do the unalivings, but when he got there, he was just so overcome that he went in. I mean, I think those are the two counter arguments for why would an individual who's supposed to be such a great criminal mastermind that he was able to walk away without a ton of his DNA being dropped, given the crimes, and how he didn't take the victim's DNA with him. That's the big question.
And when it comes to what the touch DNA is, this is that article. You can click on it. It's like a 20-minute video. I read through the whole article. You'll hear the whole story. It's from the Innocence Project itself. That's the article from them itself. And that's when I was like, I ain't touching that damn coffee cup unless I'm going to buy it.
No.
I'll be
more
damned.
shaking hands anymore.
I'll be damned if somebody goes, who's this CJ guy? No, I already, hey, Google, Life 360, them apps. Hey, that shows where I'm at 24/7.
There you go. There you
Listen, I know about digital footprints and I use them for my own protection.
Right.
Have to. But yeah, driving all over when really, as soon as you get into Moscow, you can hook a right and go around the Kibbe Dome and hit 1122. If you're a member, you can see the video. I'll drop that link for you too. I actually dropped the video, 4-parter of just the raw video of when I showed up to 1122 for the first time ever. And that's the commentary while I'm doing the drive and everything.
CJ, so by that time, you had pretty much been covering that would have been what, November 2023?
Well, I started my show, and here's the link that for that if you remember. I started. It's wild, you guys. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I started my show. Uh, I did it because COVID and all that other stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
I won't get into that. I have before. But I started my show. I was going to start right around Halloween. My computer took a dump, and I had to get a used one from a pawn shop because I'm like, man, I did all this to get ready,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Excuse me. So it was about the early few days of November. I started doing my shows.
Right.
I did a little bit of true crime here and there, not much, but it was more, like current events, world events. It was meant to be like a talk show. I was just gonna get into how the program worked
Right.
and then open up phone lines and just do phone lines the whole time about world current events and stuff. And when I came across this, I heard about it that morning, and I think it was the same morning that the University of Virginia Tech, maybe there was a school pew pew that
Mm-hmm.
same day, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, wow, it was a clip that we covered, and it was like, holy crap, this is, it's stuff that you've heard, unfortunately before. And and as the 3 days go by, and we're sitting there watching the press conference because it's live, and we're like, man, we gotta see, like, this is four people, this is wild, in the middle of nowhere, this is wild. So we're sitting there watching the press conferences live, and as that
Yeah.
week goes by and I'm watching the press conferences live, I ended up starting to do a lot more shows about it because I'm like, something stinks, you guys.
Yeah.
This don't make sense. And then all of a sudden, I've been covering it from the first day it happened, and this platform has became what it has became, other than what I initially envisioned, because of this case, because of all the questions and the contradictions, and then you're looking for information, and all of this other stuff is coming out, and it's just like, what the heck, man? And you just turn into to this right here. So it was a year anniversary when I went out there. He's still driving around, right? A year anniversary when I went out there, and so it was a year that I was covering the case. But this is where, a lot of it was the discussions that first year was based off of the PCA and
Yeah.
comparing it analytically to other crimes. But when I went out there and I experienced what I experienced, that's when I started to really do the digging when it came to the university, the volunteer programs, the community,
Right.
all of those things. And that's when I was like, holy crap. That's why. That's why all those press conferences were, we don't, you're safe, but we can't tell you that the person's not still out there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no.
CJ, so it was basically a year, almost a year to the day that you started your podcast. Give it, take a few days.
At that
What
point, yeah.
what was it like when you finally found yourself, making that turn onto Taylor, going on, seeing the Sigma Chi and the Banfield and where the undercover cops were parked, and then you make that turn onto King, and that quick turn onto Queen when you were finally in front of this house that you had been researching and discussing for a year.
It was wild.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys? I'll give you a little. You want to see the little here? It's a members only video, but I will go to the part where I pulled up. Okay, I'll share it as a little snippet. Hold on.
Oh, thank you.
I will let you hear exactly what it felt like. Now there's plenty of commentary before that. Trust me, because I was doing a little bit of exploring in different spots, and it was, yeah. Here, let me skip ahead. Here, let me pull this up real quick. Here, I'll let this play here for a second. This is we're about to pull up to 1122. This is one footage, but this was from a different day than the day that I'm going to show you. So this is a day it's nice and beautiful and sunny. The first day that I went there, it was cloudy and gloomy and dim. It was like you could feel the sadness inside your soul. It was every time that I got close, because if you guys know, when I'm out there on location, I rely a lot on vibes, and I'm telling you, when I would get just blocks away, it was so heavy. It was so heavy. But I'll let this play. This is a different day. This will be clearer than what I'm going to show you because we're replaying a video of a replay, so then it cuts down the clarity. This is raw. So you're getting the raw footage right now. So this is pulling up. And you can see how scrunched it is. How close everything is. I mean, even pulling through that drive. Literally, as I drive these city streets in Moscow, every like 5 seconds, I would have to ask myself, okay, where am I going to go if a car comes in the opposite direction?
Oh.
So there's that. All right, so here's this. Yeah, it was like, whoa, you're that close. So here's the first time that I showed up. And again, here's this link. If you remember, you'll get the better clarity, because that's raw video straight to YouTube, but replaying it on here, it's going to cut down the clarity because of StreamYard. So let me go. Let's see here. All right, so let's blow that up. Let me play. I'm going around Sigma. Here, let's go around Sigma Chi. We'll show you Sigma Chi too.
Big black truck.
That's the back of it. That's the back of it. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. There's Sigma Chi. There's the right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then I see the fucking. Oh my gosh. This is so creepy. This is where I did the Google guy shit. All right. So before that, it was already getting intense. So now you're hearing intensity. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
It's intensity, right?
Oh my gosh. This is so. Oh my gosh.
Too much. It was too much.
Now I'm going to be driving in front of Taylor Avenue, and then Sigma Chi will be on the right, and then I'm going to go down on King and Queen Road. Holy shit. This is creepy.
Yeah.
And then here, is this Linda Lane?
First time ever.
This is Linda Lane, isn't it?
And one thing I want to say real quick is when you're looking at it from Google, it is completely different when you're actually there, because it's like you don't. I was looking at the map for a year, scanning the map like crazy, and when I went there, I was like, yeah, some landmarks stuck out to me, but man, with the elevation changes and how scrunched everything is, it overwhelms you, because you're like, wait a minute, huh? Huh? It's very overwhelming. Again, this is the first time.
Yeah, this is Linda Lane. Straight up ahead. No, Blake Avenue. Linda Lane is next to it.
Oh, it says unstable internet connection.
All right, hold on.
And as much people want to say that internet cuts out between Pullman and Moscow, it don't. My phone never cut out once. In fact, I had strong bars. The only time it cut out was 2 times on Ridge and on Taylor. That was the only 2 times it cut out. And this is proof right here, because the call was cutting out.
Let me shut it off and turn it back on.
The video.
Is it showing it again?
No, not yet. Still can't see anything.
See how gloomy?
Not yet.
It's
Not
gloomy.
yet.
Whoa. There's only
Not
stairs.
yet.
It's not working?
But now it can. Now it is.
All right, this is it right here. Holy shit.
Oh my god. Like,
This is-
it's like freezing cold. That's how bad my chills are. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh my god, this is it right here. This is fucking.
Oh,
Oh my god. Oh my god.
there's too much.
Oh my god. There's the fucking house, dude.
Look at that. Oh, scrunch.
Oh man, there's the deck. Oh my gosh.
There's too much.
Hold on.
Oh no, is it? That was frozen for a second. I was like, what?
I'm gonna. Wow, that house is actually pretty close too. 11:26.
And that's me as I just stepped out of the vehicle. It was so overwhelming. It was just like
You could hear it in your voice, CJ.
I didn't know what
Yeah.
to say. I
Yeah.
didn't know what to say. It was so overwhelming. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Could you
Oh.
believe how close everything was and how tight this area was when you got there?
No, because when you're looking at Google, everything looks spread out. Like,
Right.
so if you see this picture right here, and I just stepped out of the door, and I'm videoing, and I have more video where I get closer and I'm moving around, right? But as I just step out, look at how close you are.
Right.
And when you're looking down in front of you and you see some of these other videos where I'm getting even closer, just a couple steps away from here, literally it's 3 to 5 steps from where I'm at, and you're right at the cement slab. You just go
Look-
down a little hill.
Looking at that sliding glass door. You know.
You're just going down a little hill. But when you're looking at it, you know, like I was looking at it for a year, scanning that map ever since the crime, because I was here in Paradise Path, you know. I was in the very beginning, Paradise Path. That, hey, there's somebody that was threatening somebody with a knife on Paradise Path, dressed in black, riding a bike. To me, how is a college student going to look out of the ordinary riding a bike in a town where most people walk or ride a bike because it's so scrunched, and then they're all dressed in black? You're seeing them at night. You're not going to see red stuff on a all black outfit.
Right.
And then they're carrying a backpack or something. You're just going to think it's some student that was. So when you're looking at this map, you know, and you had the house, and the house was right here, and you're looking at this parking lot, when you're looking at Google, you're like, dang, that's quite a bit of distance. That's like 10, 15 feet. But no, when you're actually there and you get out and you're like, whoa, everything was so scrunched. I never felt so claustrophobic in a town until I went there. And then when I started talking to the people that live there, and then I started hearing stories about different things that we started to dig into at that time when it came to, you know, the church around there, and the how certain things go, and what happens if you speak against the norm. And, you know, even like that interview with James that I showed you guys.
Right.
And he talked about his experience with the church and living in Moscow, and what it's like when you speak out, you know, when you don't go with the norm. And so it was very, I was only there for a week, and you could feel intimidation just from the atmosphere of how thick it was from all of the stories that I was hearing. I talked to a lot of people that was off the record because I already knew. I'm like, look, if I go there and talk on the record, they're going to say the same propaganda that they have to in order for nobody to reprimand them. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, nah,
Mm-hmm.
you talk to me off the record. Don't worry. This thing ain't even recorded. Let's have a real conversation because I want real facts. I don't need to sit there and put it out there like that, like these other people. I want knowledge. I'm not interested in the PR. Let's
Right.
do that later. You know.
So what did without because you're a journalist, without divulging your sources, can you just speak generally with what you learned, CJ, when you were out there?
About what? What
Just
specific
about like
question?
when people were told, look, you're not gonna. This isn't the type of show where I'm going to be featuring you tomorrow. If you speak with me off the record. When people got comfortable with you and saw that you were the real deal, you
They
weren't
were
there to
comfortable.
exploit. What were they saying? I mean, did they buy the official story? Did they have concerns?
Well, I mean, just ask me. There was so many conversations, and see, when I went out there, uh, I made sure that I got gear from each college.
Hmm.
So when I'm out there talking to people, these people, most of them probably thought I was a student that went there.
Right, you weren't getting stopped every 5 minutes like Coburg
No,
or Pennsylvania tag.
I was just going up talking to people, and it was like I was somebody that was, you know, a new student. Like I got that baby face, Kathy. So
I
when
know.
when I'm showing up, they're probably like, "Hey, what's up, buddy?" And I'm like, no. And when it came to like the stores, when I was even having conversations with the checkout people,
Right.
you know. So we talked about so much. I mean, that would be an episode where it would be its own show by itself and maybe more. But what specific question do you want to know? And I'll tell you the percentages of the people.
Just generally speaking, do they feel they got the soul and the correct defendant? You know?
More, no. Most
Huh.
think, most think, now there's some diehards too, because on the plane right out there, I sat next to a lady that was following the case that lived in Spokane, Washington. And we had a great conversation. And we were on the plane for like 4 or 5 hours on that plane together. We had a great conversation. And she was totally like, he's 100% guilty. And I'm like, all
Right.
right, cool. It was great. It was a great conversation. Um, but it's like 65.
Hmm.
No, the uh,
Okay.
or if they don't have the right guy, if they do, then there's more than one.
Okay, that's what I was expecting to hear, that there were a lot of people who, yes, they felt that this was the right person, and a lot of it could have been for some of the reasons that when the change of venue, those expert witnesses got up there. They said, look, if you hear this 1,000 times from the police chief who you have confidence in, this is a leader in your community, you're gonna have confidence in that person. So I would have guessed or speculated that a lot of people would have said, yes, they have the right person, but he didn't do it alone.
Hmm. Yeah, that's because I heard that quite a few times, and I didn't even ask
Hmm.
that question. I
Yeah.
started to ask that question after I was told that more than a few times, and I was like, "Oh shoot, I never even." Because I'm just asking, do you think he did it, or do you think that person's still out there? Do you still, when it came to that specific topic, do you still do the buddy system?
Right.
Are you still communicating and staying, are you going back to, going to a park by yourself, different things like that.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that was one thing that was interesting to me in the very beginning was when some of them were like, yeah, I think he did it, and but I also think that somebody else is still out there too. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, interesting. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So, but it was the same thing as well. Like they have the questions that we do. They're not stupid.
Right.
They have the questions that we do. They have, why is there no information? Why
Yeah.
did they just put out a stock photo? If why they have the same questions.
And you're
Uh,
talking you're talking people that lived it. If they're in the
yeah,
community, then they're living it in real time. They're not like us remotely trying to figure out this case. They're walking to their cars, at nighttime if they have to, if they work night shift, or they're driving past. I mean, I've had people on my, that follow me on my podcast that are from the area and won't drive past that entire, that neighborhood, refuse to do it. Will go in another direction just not to drive past it, because you get like the creepy feel, like I'm sure
it's
has you
heavy.
did, CJ,
It's
right?
heavy.
You felt it in the atmosphere. You
It's
felt the
heavy.
evil maybe, or the sadness and the grief and the
Yeah.
loss.
Yeah, it was the sadness. It was, I felt like the overwhelming sadness
Hmm.
I felt there. And then as soon as I pulled up and I parked back there and I got out of the vehicle where we ended the video a second ago, when I got out of the vehicle, that's when that sadness turned to, I was feeling that opportunity for the rage and the perfection of the crime based off of
Wow.
what was right
Wow.
in front of me. And that's when I was like, whoa, dude, I see it right here. And then as I always refer to as well, when I'm sitting there, because like I said, I couldn't get lodging in Moscow. I couldn't get it in Pullman, and I was there for the year anniversary. There was a parents weekend. I couldn't get lodging, so I had to drive how long is Spokane from Moscow?
Wow.
3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours, something
What?
like that, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So what I would have to do, because I didn't want to go back to the hotel and sit down and finish up my work, and then go, shoot, I forgot to do this. Well, here, I can run back out there and do that. I couldn't do that, even in the
Right.
middle of the night, because of the distance. So every night I would sit at that, when I was done with what I needed to be done for that day. It got dark at 4:15, and I wasn't done. So I was still
Wow.
doing stuff at night. So when I got done at like 7, 8, 9 at night, I would sit back in that parking lot and I would sit there and do my work
Wow.
on the computer, laptop screen, highlighting my face, and people are coming in and out and nobody's looking at me sideways. Nobody's, there's nothing. I didn't even see an officer come roll through even one time. And all the time that I was there, and if it's a vehicle and a person you don't know and that's not suspicious hanging out in a parking lot on their laptop every night, well then, so
Yeah.
that's when it started to really set in. Holy crap. Like, they could have really just sat back here as much as they wanted.
Right.
And
Right.
nobody, it was
And especially if you're from the area, who's going to
very
look twice
revealing.
at you? If you're renting an apartment there, or if you live down the road, or you're a student, no one's going to look twice at you. People are just, they're involved in their daily lives, unless, they know you. But just, I mean, that gives me the creeps, just thinking that you're back there, you are feeling, I mean, that's probably, the access either in or out or both. And a year earlier, to think that someone was that diabolical to have had the guts to go in there and to do what they did, within a matter of minutes, changed people's the entire scope of course of their lives. In one instant, those 4 young people that were doing nothing but getting their education to prepare them for the rest of their lives, so now the future children are gone, the careers that could have been, the anniversaries, the celebrations, the holidays gone. And then they say for each person that is unalived, there's studies that it impacts something like 100 other people. You start from the inside, and the parents, the brothers, the sisters, the cousins, the close friends, and on out, that they have to live the rest of their lives suddenly with this person with no warning, you couldn't even imagine something like this happening to you, and they have to go on for the rest of their lives with that hole in their heart. I don't know how they do it. It's how they get out of bed in the morning. That's got to be a major undertaking. It's horrible, and to think that you're standing there probably where that person walked
Mm-hmm.
that night, and maybe before if he was doing surveillance, or she or they.
Or they lived right across, at Queen Road Apartments. Because that's where they would have parked, and they would have had to, think about all the parties that were taking place back there, and they had to go park back there, and partying's, and that's a whole nother topic, with even
Right.
and so, but but fortunately that this is what, you guys think about it. The freshman that was a freshman the year that this crime happened is going to be a senior soon, so the people that half of the people that were there, and that goes for Pullman too, half of the people that were there that felt that whole experience are going to be gone.
Right.
And when it comes to, that means that only half are going to remember what it really felt like. People will be like, oh, that's the area, because they're going to be new, but nobody there. It's a different feeling when you were actually there,
Right.
experiencing the no information, experiencing the fact that you couldn't even go anywhere without thinking that this crime was going to happen to you, because the people that were supposed to be there to protect you weren't giving you information to protect you. They were just gaslighting you.
Yeah, I'll never understand why they hid so much information close to their chest, and didn't release, like I said, two things. I will never understand in a million years, why it didn't release a photo of suspect vehicle 1, and at least attempt to get an artist rendition for safety purposes. Because like you say, many of the population, this is a college town. And sometimes people are 17 when they start college, and, away from home, not familiar with the area, not familiar with the streets, just really starting to kind of get their feet wet. Imagine what that terror must have been like, and that eeriness and that sadness of living there, and, driving past that house, or walking past it if you have a dog, or you're right around the corner, and how it went on, and then the media coming in, and, and some of the people that went in there to just basically, to harass and annoy some of the residents that were to just experience this thing. And they have to think, am I going to turn the corner, and the boogeyman's going to be there? I mean, this is the classic boogeyman story. Worst nightmare from kids, that you go to bed, the boogeyman's going to come and get you in your bed. It's just, I really,
for a long time.
For a long time, I'm hopeful that when we finally get some, more of this information, that it will become clear, because you got to keep open the possibility he was involved. We don't know him. We don't have the evidence. We don't have the evidence. It's hidden. Maybe there's a lot of evidence that we don't know about. Like they've said, you have to be skeptical when it's under seal like this and it's hidden. But, we've got to find out who did this and why, so that we can learn and pray and hope and do whatever we need to do as a society to ensure, it doesn't happen again, and to ensure the right people are brought to justice. I've spoken with my husband. He's like, could you imagine if they got the wrong person, and it's like 2 or 3 people that did, and they're walking around, and they could be, you could be brushing up against it. Your children could be brushing up, and you would never know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And until the day he was arrested.
Yeah.
It was the same information.
No, it was. You're 100% right. I remember the day, because I learned about the case and was following it. And then when it came out, Poconos, because I'm from Pennsylvania, and it was like, what? You know, we've been to the Poconos. That's where
The
you would go for
shithole mountains.
vacation.
The shithole
Right.
mountains.
Shithole mountain. But you know, the day of, you are the day before the day the PCA came out, they were still looking for, you know, the wrong car, and we would like to speak with the occupant or occupants. Remember that, CJ? They always made it clear that it was more than one.
Yeah. Suspects, plural.
Suspects, right. We want to
Plural.
talk to these people, you know, not a POI. We just want to talk to you because you might have information. And then they were all coming out. Hey, if you're a college kid and, you know, you don't be afraid, come forward. Even if, you know, you're out drinking that night or whatever,
and go
come
home.
forward. Right.
Go
Maybe,
home.
maybe a neighbor of yours has a car that's, you know, in a garage that you've seen, you know, that they don't take it out anymore, something like that. They were looking for those types of tips actively.
They sent him home days before even the Thanksgiving break was supposed to start, you know?
Right. These were people possibly with information. People possibly that knew the victims. And what's the classic case? You know, when something like this happens, you start with the inner circle and work your way out. You know, we still don't know what they did, how they, you know, how much research they did to clear people. You
they
know,
don't
and
even know how many people were out front when they showed up. They don't even know the exact number. They could never answer that question in the press conferences either.
They never did. You know, they always dodged. They always dodged the hard questions. And, you know, and then it becomes, did they clear all of these people with the same tenacity that they attempted to clear those unknown sources? You know, the glove and the handprint on the. Is that how much effort and time you put into clearing people, or did you do it? Did you do a thorough job? I hope they did a thorough job. You know, we don't know because that information is not known to the public.
Well, we do know that they didn't do a thorough job when it comes to when it comes to this. I mean, that's where it starts, right? DNA lady. Right, DNA lady, that's where it starts, don't it?
You know, and CJ, if that's done out in public, they had to know that there's eyes on them. Can you imagine what went on in the house? You know, the possible contamination of stuff, and if they're dropping gloves, picking them up, putting them back in, they're going to use it after it's fallen on the floor.
Touching all their equipment that they're touching with all brand new gloves as they move from room to room. Right? I mean, what are you using while you're using that camera and that strap that has all that touch DNA on it with no matter how many gloves you put on after that, because you put a whole bunch of gloves in your pocket after you already, I mean, who knows how many gloves are in that box that had that on there too, because she reached in the box and grabbed some with the same glove and then put it in her pocket. So not only her gloves, but the gloves that were still in the box that got touched as well. And then you're going in there from room to room. You obviously are documenting items from the crime scene, because what's going to happen? You're going to see a photo with a sheath, right? And who took the photo? That lady. You know, you're going to see somebody move the sheath and then have something up next to it or have it placed somewhere else. And there's another photo. Who moved it? Who took the photo? That lady.
Yeah. You know, another detail that I really, that would, I think, help a lot is if we knew the sequence of what happened. Who was attacked first, and that if it's one weapon that did it, then that should be a fairly easy way, or, you know, not fairly easy, but it was whose DNA was on whose body. Then you can kind of, I think that's how they determine, right? One of the ways they determine who was first, who was second, who was third, who was fourth, the mixture of the DNA going from one victim to the next, the next, to the next.
It's that simple. Speaking of the DNA, let's go over those court documents here. Let me share that screen with you. And I'm refreshing, and I've been refreshing the whole day because it's like here's the video. When I this whole 911 call audio stuff,
Right.
where's it at, right? Where's it at? This is why I was on the show real early this morning. I think we started it at 6:30 in the morning.
Wow.
But this is where it's like, come on, guys, this is a baffle gift. It's like it's a fumbaloo. It's a hot dog steak. It's like, come on now. Come on now. Come
Mm-hmm.
on now. You know what happened. Yeah, the family. I'm not saying it didn't come out. I'm saying the family got it. And the only two YouTubers that totally agree with Christy G and Steve, those are the two that are just, no matter what, boom, pound the defense, even though it's like, wait a minute, what? What? But you guys can see we've already had our debates in the past, and very healthy ones too, because I'm from I question everything. I don't trust everything that's told to me. I have to question it. Good stuff though, a couple years ago. But I wanted to talk about these court documents now,
Mhm.
or I wanted to hear what you had to say. You guys had to say about them. So what's going on with this one? Do you have them in front of you, or do you want me to
Cool.
read it?
No, it's you got a great screen. This is the latest that has come out, and this came out early. I was very shocked to see this. This is the response in opposition. Not really an opposition totally. It's an opposition regarding sanctions to the moving motion, which is the defense's motion in limine number 11. And this has to do with seeking an order to exclude IGG evidence. And usually, if you've followed the case at all, you know how hard and how long both sides butted heads
Yeah.
on pretty much everything, with the exception possibly that things need to be under seal and there needs to be a gag order. That is virtually the only thing that they've consistently agreed on. But if you read this document, it came out a week early.
Mm-hmm.
The responses are not due to all of the in limine motions until the 17th of March, and that's by operation of Judge Stephen Hippler's January 31st order. What that order did is it actually changed the pretrial and trial order, because the motions in limine, the briefing schedule, and the dates of hearing is contained in that October 9th pretrial and trial order. Parties went to Judge Hippler in January and said, we need a little bit more time. These in limine motions are absolutely critical. They're so important. And so if you want to follow the schedule as to how, when they're all due, look at the January 31st order from Judge Hippler regarding the motions in limine. Yeah, but basically, these were not due until the 17th. So they sort of gave the defense a gift, because the defense now has a full 2 weeks to be able to take their time and prepare their reply, because you know how Hippler is. He's a
Mm-hmm.
stickler for deadlines. Don't be filing things late. Don't go to him the day before if you need an extension of time for some reason. So they've come back here. Basically, the motion wants the same thing. Wants the IGG evidence excluded. And like some people will say, well, didn't they just lose this argument in the suppression motion? Yes, they did. They did raise this issue in the motion to suppress, which were the hearings that happened on the 23rd. This was actually the hearing that was behind closed doors, that we just got the transcript a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the defense is arguing it under different grounds. They're not raising the Fourth Amendment because Judge Hippler has denied that ship sailed. Here, what the defense is saying is under different constitutional grounds: the Fifth, the Sixth, and the 14th Amendment, And then also, they're wanting sanctions imposed against the state for bad faith act in not turning over this evidence sooner, like when they first asked for it in May of
Mhm.
2023. And they also want, they want sanctions.
Yeah, over and over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, this was one of probably the most, I don't know about you guys, but I think that this was probably the biggest hotly contested issue between the sides. This issue of, is it discoverable? Is it not? Okay, if it's discoverable, how much do they get? Do they get, this, that, did they, then we have the protective orders for the people that, that were involved in the testing, as well as the companies that did this testing. They're considered informants. So lots of interesting things surrounding this topic.
Well, I remember when this was going down, I was hearing in the background that they were already pushing and nothing would get signed until they put the IGG in the probable cause, and that's when they got the green light for everything and were able to apprehend him the way that they did.
Yeah.
And so, if you don't have that, then then you got to go back to the beginning of why it wasn't getting signed before, because they didn't have that. And especially to be at this point now, it's I don't know, it's crazy to think, because I mean, look at all the time that's gone by, and it was like I was saying back then. It's like they and this is where I said they just took the tip and ran with it, and was saying it then, is because you look at it and it's like, yeah, you look at how they approached the Oregon car just a couple weeks before. They set up a team, they were gung-ho, they were excited, they went out there, and then all of a sudden it just fizzled out, right? They did the same thing with Koberger too. It was like, set up a team, gung-ho. And it's like they just got that tip from the FBI
on the 19th, right?
And they waited, and they just went with it, and they were expecting everything else to materialize in time, right? But we're just going to take this tip and we're running with it. You know what? Thank you. We know more's going to come from it. We're going to deal with that later. And the thing is that stuff didn't start to come as time went on. The what they were expecting to materialize didn't happen. And remember, we heard in the mid to end December that the 3-letter agency was pissy with Moscow PD and ISP. They were pissy.
Well, that's part of what this why they're asking, not just for sanctions. They're saying this is a Brady violation, because false statements, and they knew it was false. I mean, this is what the defense is alleging. The state has completely denied that they did any wrongdoing here. But do you recall, hey, we've turned over everything that we have. Judge asked, we can't turn over what we don't have.
Right. Exact quote right there.
Right. We can't turn over what that's in the motion, and in the response, it was actually Jeffrey Nye, who responded. It's quoted significantly. And that's why you see very rarely you're going to see Bill Thompson and Jeff Nye sign this. I think because Nye is all over the motion. You've seen him in multiple places. So, but in terms of the only thing that they want a little bit different, the state wants everything about the IGG evidence excluded from the jury does not get. It's like it never happened. That's what an in limine motion seeks to do pre-trial. The only difference is that the state wants to be able to refer to how they got the tip. Going back to that judge order of October 25th, 2023, page 1, paragraph 1, they got a call from the FBI, from the feds. Look at Brian Koberger. We didn't have the time frame. We just knew that was a fact because that came out in that order. Now we know what the time frame is, which I got to ask you, Audrey. They don't know who Koberger is supposedly from, the man on the moon. Then all of a sudden on the 19th, look at him. That's our tip. That's the information they want to remain in the case. Is it possible from where they were, Othram was on the 10th when they were told to stop work, that you could inside of 9 days identify a person?
No, it couldn't. It takes weeks, maybe more than that, to develop a profile for identification. So, however they did it and as fast as they did it is just unheard of.
Yeah, real fur. I mean, that's what Leah Larkin testified to. She said it would take a lot longer than that. She didn't, and she's got the benefit of being able to look at the discovery. So she's seeing the emails flying back and forth, and she's able to read things that the public is not privy to. But then 10 days, okay, so it's 19th, 29th, affidavit of probable cause gets signed, leading to the order of probable cause, leading to the criminal complaint, and he is arrested in the early morning hours of the 30th across the country. So what they want, the big difference between what the defense asked for in their moving motion, which was filed the 24th of February, that was the deadline to file the motions in limine, sanctions. They want sanctions including Brady, and they also want everything about the IGG evidence kept out of the jury trial. The state, of course, is denying we did nothing wrong, judge. This is nonsense, and here's why. But what they want is they want to be able to let the jury know we looked at Koberger because it was a tip.
Well, I mean, all you have to do is go back to high school. When it came to general math, it's easy, but when you had to take algebra, you had to show your work.
Always.
You had to. Because they wanted to make sure you weren't using a calculator.
Or cheating, looking off your, the next person's page, right?
Well, when I was, you weren't, you can't use a calculator. So we need to see the work. Otherwise, how do we know that you didn't cheat? Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing.
Well, just CJ, just imagine if imagine for just argument's sake, the defense wins this motion. Then it was like, how did you get to Koberger?
Right. Yeah.
How'd you get to Koberger?
Yeah.
It's like, how did you get to It's what Ann Taylor said a long time ago in Moscow, when matters were still a LATOC. I still don't know how they got to my client.
Remember one of the first court hearings, Bill Thompson, and I can't remember the case. One of the first court hearings in 2023, he was referencing a case that he was arguing it like, Your Honor, the three-letter agency was able to give a tip in this case, and they weren't able to share basically their homework because it was investigative practices that they didn't want out to the public, and so they weren't going to release that. But the thing is I believe that person got off because that evidence wasn't introduced, but he was arguing it like they won the case, or it was won regardless of the three-letter agency not offering the homework. Do you guys remember that? It was one of the first few ones in early 23, and I can't remember what case it was, but I felt like back then that's going to be the reason to argue that they don't want it included, is because every time that she was asking for it, he kept saying, I've already asked him. I'll keep asking him, Your Honor. All I can do, and the next deadline would then get switched to another deadline. And it was like he was trying to say, look, I'm still waiting for this stuff from the FBI. but
Yeah,
we ain't getting it, and he had referenced it before. So to me, it makes it. I've always thought they've been telling us from the beginning. We don't have anything else than what we have for the tip, but the tip, I mean.
right, right. So now just imagine. So there's people like, oh, Ashley Banfield. I had her on for about 2 seconds. I don't know. This morning,
I
she's
skipped to
like,
Brian
Yeah.
Hinton.
yeah, she's like speaking. She's speaking to Brian.
Yeah.
She's like, can you imagine this defense? They spend
Yeah.
all this time, it was IGG this, IGG that, all the hearings, all the experts, all of this, all of that, the explosive moments. Remember, some of the most explosive moments of the case was about this. Do we have to forget, about Dr. Edelman and his PowerPoints and how everything just one of the most, memorable moments ever. This all had to do with this. So she is becoming frustrated with, everything's been under seal. They made such a big stink about IGG and now they're throwing it all out. But I don't think that she's realizing, just what a win that would be, because then they can't explain to the jury how they got to Koberger.
Well, she wouldn't be saying it if it was her own son. She's got to pay the bills. That's the difference between mainstream media and people that are independent journalists. We
Right.
don't have Cracker Barrel telling us that we can't discuss certain things, or we don't have a boardroom that's
Yeah.
above us where telling us, hey, you got to make sure it goes this way because of ratings. We don't have that. What's up, Yolie?
Right.
Hi, I'm late to the party.
Oh,
Hi,
it's all good.
Yolie, good to
It's all
see
good.
you.
Good to see you.
Hi.
Hi.
We're on this document.
Stay-
Yeah. So, what do you think about? Have you read this yet?
I haven't read it, but I know that the defense was wanting sanctions in addition to excluding the IGG. That's all I know.
Yeah. Remember a long time in the beginning when they were talking about how the FBI didn't have to give evidence. It was a court hearing in the very beginning, and I kept bringing it up back then because I was like, this is why I'm telling you they just took the tip, because they're sitting there bringing up another case to try and tell you that's why they don't need to give the homework up. Remember, because then there was going to be like this huge document drop in like October or something like that,
And-
where all these documents were supposed to drop, and then it was nothing. And it's like, yeah, they just took the tip.
Yeah, you're right. They just took the tip, and I mean that was what you had always said. So I know that people are saying things like, well, why are they? But I mean, we went like Ashley Banfield, I think it was saying, why do we go through all this stuff? Why do we go through all this only to have it, only to have it excluded? Well, the whole point of the IGG and the motion to suppress was to defeat probable cause. That was what Ann Taylor wanted to do. She wanted to defeat probable cause so that the evidence would not be enough to keep him in jail, and the case would be dismissed because there was no probable cause. But otherwise, I understand that's why she brought that motion to suppress and why she's excluding it now. But still, I don't know how they're going to be able to argue or be able to say that we got a tip from the FBI. Well,
Thank you.
What kind of tip?
Yolie, it's funny because right before you came in, I was complaining about that same thing with Ashley Banfield. I only watched it for a couple of minutes because she doesn't get the thing. You're absolutely correct. That what they want is they want sanctions. And they want sanctions, heavy duty sanctions. They said it was a BS number one, that they lost all this time. They should have turned it over when they first asked for it in discovery, which was May of 23. Not had to go through all these hoops, not had to have their experts stopped in doing certain things that they needed. And I mean, they had to wait a long time. They didn't get this IGG until January of 2024. They asked for it in May. So they're saying they lost all that time. But more critically, they're saying that documents were intentionally withheld. So they're asking for Brady. But you hit it right on the head, I think, because now what she's wanting to do here is to have, this is Bicca Barlow's emotion, is to have everything about IGG thrown out. So now it's like, well, how did you get to Koberger? How did we get to Koberger?
Question mark.
Big question mark. Detective Brett Payne, how did we get to Koberger? He can't talk about that. They're sitting around on the 19th and they're in their war room, and now all of a sudden they had the teams meeting with the feds and saying, look at Brian Koberger. And how they got to it was through IGG. So I think it's a brilliant move on her part. Will it succeed?
I mean, I see that. I see that she's setting them up. I mean, at least I think that's what she's doing, because
I agree.
don't know how. I mean, what is Brett Payne going to say?
Right.
We get Detective Payne up there. So Detective Brett Payne. All right. So you are the lead detective, right? And you wrote the PCA. And how was it that you got to my client and he can't mention it?
What made you suspect my client? A tip?
Yeah.
A tip from who?
A tip from who? She's already saying it wasn't the two, I thought it was maybe the tip that they got from the WSU two cops. No, can't say that because Payne said that's not true.
It's not true.
They weren't even looking at it. They didn't know who the heck Brian Koberger was until that call on the 19th.
Which is strange to me, but yeah, I mean, it's like a cluster F. I don't know how they're gonna explain, how Payne is gonna explain how they got to BK.
Right.
Just the tip. So when's the here, what about this document too? Let me switch to this as well. This was another one. Basically the same thing. Just discussion. Do you think it's gonna be? I think it's gonna be. She wants it. Ann Taylor wants it. The state wants it.
I think it is excluded. I thought I heard there was an order.
Not? Right. Why wouldn't it be? That's why I'm nervous about cameras, because both of them don't want cameras in the courtroom either, so that makes me a little nervous. There
aren't any motions regarding cameras, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we still got 5 months, Still got 5 months, and look at what we're getting the 911 call transcript. We're getting the text messages from the surviving roommates. Finally, even though they're redacted, we're finally getting them after all this time, when it should have been put out a couple months after maximum here. And now with this quote audio of the 911 call, I think somebody either just played it over the phone and people heard it and recorded it themselves. That way there's no digital trail of them necessarily transferring the information, because I think it was family members that got it early, and a couple specific family members that are down with a couple specific channels. And so when it comes to this, I know somebody put out a little snippet, but it's like anybody, you know what I'm saying? I already said it earlier. Hey, if they didn't send it in an email, which I don't think they would, because then there's a digital trail, but I could see, hey, will you share it? Yeah, hold on a second. Let me play it for you. And then they put their phone up to it, and then that person's recording the audio on their phone.
Yeah, that's possible. But none of it, the 911 transcript and the text, they don't prove anything about Koberger. I mean,
no.
It's a nothing burger because I'm looking for things that point to Koberger, and I don't see that those 911 calls shed any light on.
Well, I found a couple of points here to possibly be in favor of state by releasing that. Number one, we now know, excited utterance. 4 o'clock in the morning is the start of the crimes. They're texting each other. She's testifying there that it was a guy clad in black, and we found out that it was a ski mask. But one thing that one of my viewers picked up is how they both described it was a man. They said it was a man who came in. So that is, I think, in favor of it's not a college kid. It's not because why would they say, oh, it was a man if it was like a 19-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 20-year-old? They would say, it was a guy, or it was, it was a student. It was somebody like that age. But they both used the term man to describe him, suggestive of, okay, somebody in his late 20s. To them, that's a man. If you're 19 and somebody's, late 20s, 28, 29, 30, a man. So
But
it
a man
answered a
is a
lot of
man.
questions for me regarding the timeline, at least how the state got it.
Yeah, but
And I think it also, I'm going to be honest with you, I think it also helped to address that 8-hour gap. I think that these two kids, they were young, 19, 20, they weren't kids, 19 or whatever they were. Maybe they didn't want to believe what their mind was telling them what was going on. I've been in that situation a couple of times when, with my kids when they were young, and you didn't want to believe it, because the minute that you pick up the call and you dial 911, then the situation's real. And I know that goes against, well, what about the smell? I think that in some ways that 8-hour gap was addressed.
8 hours.
The 8-hour gap, gap in calling 911 doesn't point to Brian Koberger.
No,
it doesn't. None of it. Even if they just said a man, it's still not enough. I mean, a man, okay, that maybe helps the age range, but still, what I was expecting? I thought, oh my God, maybe the reason why they have the 911 call sealed is because one of the people there said, Brian Koberger, this guy Brian came in, and did this or something. I expected something to be, or in the text between the two roommates, something identifying, oh, he said Brian, or I heard Brian.
Something identifying,
Yeah, otherwise it's just...
Well, one thing, with Dylan too, don't you think they wanted her to say, whenever they threw down the lineup or something, that was him? Don't you think that they would have
want to say nothing?
She didn't. She said she couldn't identify him.
This is what I think took. Yeah, because she did it on purpose. This is what I think took place. This is what I really feel took place that morning. Was Dylan saw something. Bethany was out of the loop. She was sitting there saying Xana was dressed all in black. She's out of the loop. All right. And I think Dylan knew, and Dylan went down and tried to suppress Bethany from knowing what she knew. And then when they were told that they needed to call 911 from a friend, then Bethany's trying to spit the truth out to the 911 caller, and somebody else is again trying to suppress the information. And I really feel like Dylan knows a hell of a lot more than what she's saying to anybody. And I think I'm just...
Yeah.
I don't know. You look at the transcripts, the messages between them, and then the 911 call. To me, that's why Bethany wouldn't have called 911, because she's sitting there asking Dylan, what about this? What? Nothing. Let's just go to sleep. And then all of a sudden, when people are showing up, they, and then you got, no, we see, no, hey, no, let's correct information. I don't know. Something is really fishy to me about that, because Like I've told people, you commit that crime and you're supposed to be my friend, I will tell you I'm all about crossing that river when the day comes because, hopefully it's beautiful. But at the same time, if something like that happens, I will make sure that I haunt your ass. I will haunt you if you were supposed to be my friend and you don't call 911. It's on.
Yeah,
It's
I
on.
mean,
I don't know.
they should have called. Well, Dylan should have called 911, but she was drunk and
From the get.
She's drunk. I mean,
It don't
and
matter.
it's easy for us to say what we would do in that position. I mean, this is
That's your
such
friend.
an unnatural thing to happen.
That was her
People,
plus
I know,
one.
but people a lot of times they see their friend, whatever. They don't want to call the cops. They
Yeah.
don't want to believe what they're seeing,
But
you
that
know,
was
or they just
that's her
hoping.
plus
And then
one.
like when you say she's drinking, also
She could have been
So
drugged. I mean, we don't know.
so
could have
but
been drugged, right? Right.
come on. That crime that's not a quiet crime.
No.
That's not a quiet crime. And you're freaking think about how many times when you have a roommate, all the times you can just hear them walking normal. And you're going to tell me you didn't hear that through your ceiling? Dude, that's your friend. That's the friend that you called to be your plus one that weekend, which has always been suspicious to me because you're the one that wants to shut up, give a whole bunch of different descriptions, not say nothing. And then now you see on the text messages and the 911 call, especially 8 hours later, what you're having to be told, and then you're trying to distance yourself from the house. You're trying to make sure that it's not being said. You're controlling information. It to me it's like somebody didn't want to. How could you not? How could you
Yeah.
not?
Yeah, but that's like a peripheral thing because it does. I mean, it doesn't show that BK did this crime, and so I'm still waiting. Okay, what do you have aside from this tip that you can't disclose in trial?
I know, yeah. Yoli, they haven't placed him in the house yet.
Yeah.
They really have not. I mean, you're talking beyond a reasonable doubt. That
Utilize
is,
towers.
what a high evidentiary standard
Utilize the
that
tower,
is, right?
yes.
This isn't
That's it.
civil.
And
So it's
even now, I'm like unconsciously, I say they had him driving around the house 12 times. No, because that's initially what they said. But what it really was is he touched the tower. He contacted the tower that also that also was used for the house indoors.
CJ, didn't you uncover the fact that you could be in, so far away yourself touching the tower? Like, didn't you say one time that you were in Pullman and it had you possibly in somewhere else?
Yeah, because I was
Yeah.
boots on the ground out in southern South Carolina in the Low Country doing work for Stephen Smith's case.
Mm-hmm.
And I got in a situation where it was the first time that I literally had no cell phone signal or whatever. And I was there by myself, and it was a situation where the people that were there knew that I was trying to uncover a narrative that was supposed to be pushed and very beginning. And so when I went out to Idaho that next trip, I specifically went to the cell phone carrier and I said, look, I don't want to be in a position where I was at down in South Carolina where I had no cell phone service. I know I'm going out to the middle of nowhere. Can you show me where the cell towers are at and show me what the coverage is? And they look like little hexagons with different colors. And because I said, if I get in a situation driving that South PCA route, if I get in a situation where I don't have cell phone service, I want to have it in the back of my head what road I need to go to and how I can get there the quickest if I'm in a dangerous situation. And so that's when I first found out that you could be in the southeast corner of Pullman and literally be connecting to the same tower that 1122 utilizes. You don't even have to be in Moscow.
Wow.
Now she says that he was in Moscow, and yes, when it comes to shopping, you don't get bags for your items in Washington State. That's why I went to Moscow to go do my shopping, because I got tired of walking up looking like a kangaroo to the hotel with stuff that I bought from Walmart for food because I didn't have any damn bags to put it in. So you can connect. You can, as soon as you cross the border, before you even cross the border, you're connecting to the tower that 1122 utilizes. And so when they use that terminology, it's very manipulative. Just like this video from 4 News Now that dropped 9 hours ago. You see what it says right here for the title? It says defense claims knife in the U of I murders was planted. Nobody said anything about a knife. You see where the twist, you have to state it specifically. You can't say, dude was all up in the house 12 times. No, utilize the tower. So when you look at utilize, that's what utilize tells you. Don't even have to be there. It's sad to see this stuff. I just came across it earlier. I'm like, wow, knife?
Yeah,
like Yolie said, that the sheath isn't the weapon.
It's not. And they don't.
She's been saying that forever.
I've been saying that forever, you guys. Because they say, oh, there was the DNA on the murder weapon. Really? The knife? Sheath?
Right.
I know, but jury hearing that, are they really going to be paying attention to Bicca Barlow getting up there and explaining all of the?
I think
they could get lost. They could say, "Hey, you know what? His phone was off during the time of the crimes. Number 2, his DNA done.
Well, the next time this is why I think they're going to do okay, because it is confusing, and that's why, and Yolie, I want to invite you too. I would love to have all of us on together where we go back to that CC Moore episode. I have a lot of stuff on the DNA stuff that I worked on way back then, and I'll go back and I'll get some of these podcasts and we will watch it together, because I really feel, because we went through videos and all sorts of information back then about trying to understand what it was, and it's a lot. But I really feel like when you have people up there that are going to discuss it like they're discussing it on these podcasts, it really is easy to digest. You don't have to necessarily be digging crazy into it. The only thing that you really need to understand is the questions that can come up from the very basics. And they do a very good job explaining that. And I hope, you never know with it, but I really do hope, and I really feel like that's why I say it's one of the reasons why it's going to be what I'm saying is 4 months long of a trial, is because when it comes to even stuff about this specifically, when it's going to be argued from experts, it's going to take a lot of time for these people to testify and explain things and really help people understand, because this is a DP case and they can't just show up and say, yeah, this is where the question's minimal. You really have to dig into it. And I really feel like this is probably going to be the biggest chunk of the trial, is discussing this tip and how it works. And
yeah, because the whole, I think people get sidetracked with the circumstances. Like there was an 8-hour delay with the call, 911 call. There was people. The most important thing is that there were people there contaminating the scene. So in terms of the calls, I know that based on that text messaging that was just recently put out, she called the person with the initial J or something. Who knows who that was, but there were people at the house when police arrived. So and who knows if anybody moved anything. That's the thing.
Right. And it's the you got to think, like, this is why the university knew before anybody else, because they have, so with all of these crimes that happen with these schools, right? There's a lot of mass casualty crimes or attempts of it, or even discussions or plots. And that's one of the things that an IT department is going to have keywords. So what they do is they have keywords that are set up that, whatever their keywords are, when they get keywords, they get notifications for those keywords. They have to then go and find out exactly, okay, what's this keyword? So they already, the university has apps, they control that. The university has emails, they control that. If you think that you're having ultimate privacy with those things, especially a university email, you're out of your damn mind. That's all they, and they don't even have to tell you that they're looking at it. Okay.
No.
So
No.
when you're looking at keywords, and then they're getting there's Snapchat and all these other stuff that they don't have access to, that information wise that way. But that's not the only chatter that was taking place on other platforms. And when they're getting these keywords, that's how they already knew how to set up a crisis team and how they were going to approach it and send their team out. They weren't sending it just to Sigma Chi and the local house. They were sending it to all fraternities and sororities, which meant there was a lot of chatter going on between everybody when it came to those messaging services, and they were jumping the ball. And with that, they're the ones that had all the information from the beginning. And when you're looking at that tells you right there, they already had all this. They had a headquarters set up already. They had teams going out. And this is just after the 911 call took place. Just after, when that would normally take hours to gather people, get a headquarters set up a team, have different teams. You're going out here, you're going out there. We need to do this here. Everybody's there. You got to wait for people to show up. This is a Sunday morning out of the blue, and you're already ready to send out your teams just after the 911 call came in. So they already knew.
So there was at around 10:30
in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah. Dylan was texting the roommates, "Are you up? Are you up?" So to me, there's from 10:30 to noon. What happened? Like, what did Dylan do? Did they go see what happened? And that goes to contamination in terms of, it just touch DNA or transfer DNA. I shouldn't say touch DNA. Transfer DNA. Like somebody could have just rubbed up against somebody and somehow it ended up in the house. Like, Brian could have, who knows? Brian could have given that knife to Maddie as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it was found underneath her bed, because she was trying to protect herself with it. But there's no connection even to that. There's no connection to Brian and Maddie. But there's so many possibilities of how that the skin cells could have gotten there. And it had to have gotten there before the crime was ever committed, because the person who was unaliving them most likely was wearing gloves. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To get there, how you got there. It's questions that, when you're looking at it, and it's like I'm just saying it, number one, from the get-go, what person that's committing the crime is going to use a hand to hold a sheath when they need that hand to make sure that they make it out of there for defense. And the military doesn't give our soldiers sheaths that can pop off a belt with a struggle from a college student. Let's think about it here. It doesn't just pop off. They're not going to continue to give it to our military members and shout out to them. It doesn't just pop off during a struggle.
Yeah, isn't it supposed to be attached to a belt?
Yeah, it doesn't pop off during a struggle. And the person that's committing the crime, you're not holding it in the hand that you need to use to control or defend while you're using the weapon. Nobody that commits that crime is going to do that. So from the very beginning, it's like, yeah, it could have been stuffed under the covers, and it was a pawn. It was a pawn shop knife.
Yeah.
You're a broke college student. You don't get a check, and you got a couple days, and you need some food. Well, I got a couple of them. Why not just pawn one of them off? And then somebody comes across it and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna get this for Maddie because she needs some protection, and I know she can't handle a pew pew."
You never know. I mean, these are all
the machetes that were around the neighborhood alone. How many you see all the students that were attacked, you see them all holding machetes in different photos at parties and gatherings. I mean, it was a joke. It's sick. Like, that's one of the things when I went up there, I didn't realize that they had hunting groups that didn't go out there and hunt for food. They hunted for the brutality of it. I mean, that's some sick shit, man.
But, and I'm thinking about the knife sheath. It would be one thing if they did what they did with the skin cells on the button snap and they went through all of that. If they had done that with the other samples, like the sample on the handrail and the glove, the blood samples, if they went through the same kinds of lengths to try to figure out who that belonged to, because you'd want everybody in the crime that committed the crime. And so it just seems so weird that they just focused on that and ignored the blood. I don't know.
When you got unknown DNA.
Well, in that same... Sorry.
Okay.
Well, in that same line that you're talking about, Yolie, is it a leap for them to assume that the sheath actually came from the perpetrator? Like, that could have been used for self-defense, or... I'm so curious to see what the medical examiner says about the weapon. Sorry, go ahead.
Right, about the weapon and unalived him. And did they ever try to clear up or find out if any one of the roommates owned a knife, a K-bar knife? You never know. Somebody may have given it to somebody as a gift, because they're out there, and there's girls living in a house. So yeah, we don't know, but it like in the OJ case, I mean, they were looking at a glove that wasn't even at the crime scene in the OJ case. The glove was at OJ's house, not where the crime scene was. And they were testing the hell out of that for DNA. So this thing about the knife sheath was closer to the crime, I don't buy it. I just don't know why they would not have done the testing. Now, Mr. Thompson said that those DNA were not eligible or something like that. And then
they didn't qualify.
Or they didn't qualify. And then you have Brett Payne saying, well, we just put it in CODIS and we thought that if we put it again, that it'll erase what we had, or some excuse like that. It just doesn't make sense.
No. And it really could have been like I'm just going from common sense. If you're going in there to commit that crime, ask any criminal if they're going in to commit that crime, if they're walking in with the sheath in their hand, or they're putting it in their pocket. The analytics are telling you that's stupid. Like the analytic, because number one, if you're going in there to take out 4 people, all right, just one person, just one person You don't know if that weapon's going to slip out of your hand. You don't know if something's going to happen or there's going to be a struggle. It's a 50-50 to then a 75-25, depending on how much control you have, because there's still a chance that that could end up in the other person's hands. You do that to 4 people and you're going in there with one hand holding the sheath and just using the other hand to commit the crime. Wow. Houdini, magician. The analytics tell you that's dumb and that you're not going to survive it. So just from the get-go, it's like, what person would walk in there and need the hand, whether it's control or defense? Because the other one's got to hold this.
Yeah,
it just never made sense.
Never. No, it doesn't. And for yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot for Ann Taylor to cross-examine, just the facts. And then now they have the attorney Victor Barlow, and she's going to do the DNA. So hopefully they'll have a good team to cross-examine these people that were involved, like Brett.
Especially, I can't wait to hear the testimony about this. Speaking of the OJ trial, it's like I tell everybody, the OJ, because I watched it too. They hammered on the contamination first, and then the glove was the icing on top of the cake. Because before it came to the glove, which anybody that's trying on a leather glove with latex, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. That's just, again, common sense. That's next to the M&Ms at the grocery store. But when it comes to the contamination, they hammered on the experts, the investigators that were handling the evidence, the investigators that were documenting the evidence, the investigators and how they transported the evidence.
Yeah.
That was all hammered to smithereens and showed how lack of an investigation took place when they had all of this sitting there and they didn't utilize it properly. And that's why the glove is what was the finale of that acquittal, because I really feel if they wouldn't have hammered the contamination, people would have questioned the glove. Okay, well, how about you get the same pair that doesn't have dried up red stuff on it and don't use a latex glove, and let's see if it fits, right? There would be more questions. But by that point, it was like, holy hell, you guys, we've already seen these different experts come up here and get torn to shreds because they didn't do it properly and they didn't know what they were doing or what they were talking about. And I really feel like when we're up there watching the testimonies of all these investigators, we're going to see the same thing that we saw in the OJ trial when they were hammering the contamination. I feel it's going to be a carbon copy of it. And you're going to see these investigators up there getting their ass handed to them. Because did they not, Yolie, did they not get their ass handed to them for that contamination?
And they were showing pictures. They were showing pictures of how with the manila folder, there was tennis shoes on a manila folder. And they showed that one of the investigators was walking out with tennis shoes on a manila folder. That who knows where that manila folder's been. But
right in the back seat, didn't even put it in a bag.
Yeah, I mean, see, that's just the whole. People will go to lengths to say that BK did it, and maybe I'm the type that I'm trying to make excuses for why he didn't do it, but it's not excuses. It's just transfer DNA is transfer DNA. There's no way to know how it got there. There's no way to know when it got there. Well, how it got there, they might have an explanation for it. I mean, we never know what's going to come out in trial. There might be an explanation. But when it got there, I don't think anybody can tell that, especially if it degrades on brass, like I'm hearing that it does. I don't know if that's true, but
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
horrible.
the DNA is recoverable between 4 and 12 hours. And then once you get to the 24-hour mark, it's below 1% for recovery rate.
Oh,
And then I just want to point out that, like,
Because of the
their
petroleum, right?
evidence is sort of a stretch. I think it's the ions. There's a chemical reaction that happens.
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, we read an article about it on my channel, and there was a whole study, and they put different types of, surrogate DNA in the light, in the dark, and on different types of metal, and they recorded the reactions of each metal. And of course, there's stainless, there's soft metal, there's brass, and there's copper. And it was a very interesting article. I recommend anybody who's interested in that kind of stuff to watch that. And we read along together, and there's pictures, and the whole study was absolutely very organized and great. And that's not the first time that I've heard that there's a limited amount of time to recover DNA from brass. So I think that if I read it in scholarly journals a handful of times, there is some science to it. Whether it happened in this case, I can't say for sure, but it is likely that it is not going to last as long as the other types of DNA.
Yeah. And so you've got that, and I'm sure Bishop Barlow is going to use, cross-examine the people that swab the DNA. I mean, they have no way of knowing. I just, and how is it preserved? Like after you swab it and you get it, how is it preserved? Like, is it on a slide or?
No, you just have the data.
Usually they get the data from the software.
Yeah.
So they might not even have any genetic material left. All they have is the file.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And then, and then it gets to Orthram, that's already a cold case lab right there. That was the first case that they were working on that had to deal with charging or convicting somebody. And, they were all happy and thanking Moscow so much for the opportunity to do that. And then they're in the middle of what they're doing. I mean, I can't imagine their excitement that they were going through as what they were doing. But then, because, you're, as they're going through it, and all of a sudden it's like, whoosh, nope, we'll just take that. And then, but that's the biggest thing. How did, you hear these experts and they talk about it. When there's minimal amounts, you need the binders full of all of that stuff, and you have to have it all there to help you even figure out what the answer is. You can't just look at the final and go, yep. You gotta actually have all of it there, all of the tests, all the data right in front of you, and then that's what it's like a song. You start off with the beginning and it leads you to the end, and that's what you have to have with that. And I don't understand. This is another topic that you see a lot of the even this morning you're seeing all the mainstream media talking about was the DNA evidence planted, and what people aren't understanding is it doesn't mean that somebody door dashed the knife sheath to 1122. That's not what it means. It could mean, when it comes to, it says of somebody that wasn't himself, as in it could be one of the pictures that we're looking at right here. This could technically be DNA evidence that was planted. It's just how it's worded not necessarily what it means. And that's one thing that was a little frustrating today too, is hearing them discuss how it's, oh, how can it be planted? It must be a perfected, drawn out plan that they were able. And it's like, just read the court documents. It's what it's saying is it basically came from somebody else, and it could literally be this right here.
Yeah, I know you have a feeling, but I mean, it's a small town, and people run into I mean, look at Chief Fry's wife is the clerk of the court. You got Maybet that serves as a coroner, public defender, criminal defense attorney, nurse. You got all kinds of people that cross paths there. Brian was involved in, PhD program. I mean, I'm sure he had some dealings with cops. I mean,
right? It's like, yeah, can you drop me a knife sheath? Like, this is how these people were talking, all of them. And I'm just sitting there going, read the documents. Like, that's what it could be. You have to look at how it's worded, and that they're interns. Their interns are doing it for them. They're coming up with bulletin marks that they have to cover. Really, when you're looking at it, what they're saying is that the DNA was put there, that they're not arguing that it isn't his. What they're saying is hey, this right here, what if, like I said, that lady went to the same restaurant or the same store that BK was at shortly before that. He hawks a loogie on the ground, and then she walks on it not knowing, and then her boots stepping all over that glove, and then the next thing you know what I'm saying, like, and that's what planted could be. Somebody that was not him.
Yeah, because like, I follow the Karen Reed case too, and big part of that case was they're trying to make it about conspiracy and all this stuff, when it just should be very simple. And I mean, in this case, it should just be very simple. What points to Brian Kohberger? Okay, the sheath is a movable object. There was trace or transfer DNA, which is not as strong as blood DNA. They had the opportunity to test blood DNA or BLOOD DNA, and they didn't. So, the case has to be simple as that. I mean, if this person with a mask and bushy eyebrows, if that comes in, I don't know if that's going to come in. I think it will. But a person with a mask and bushy eyebrows is far from identifying Brian Kohberger. I'm not following how people can still believe. I mean, they can believe what they want, but just look at what we have.
Ego. Just think of the same people that are still pushing the same narrative when 2 years ago they said, if it comes out where there's no DNA in the car, then I'll change my mind. Well, then it came out that there was no DNA in the car. Did it change their mind? No. It's because of ego. Because when you have ego, you're just looking out the front windshield. You're not looking out all the other windows.
Go ahead, Audrey.
It's harder not to leave DNA. It's harder not to leave DNA anywhere than it is to plant DNA. So the fact that he didn't have any in his car, in his apartment, that's difficult.
I know. I don't know how. It's like I brought up in your chat, I worked, I used to do auto detail for major sports teams up in, when I lived in Akron, and for certain individuals as well, where they literally, that's why I was good at what I did, is because I made them babies come off looking like they were, coming right out of a floor room, in a vehicle, lot. And I'm talking like vehicles I could never even imagine that I could ever afford one day, you know, and a lot of the vehicles that I was working on. And I, you know, and when you're talking about the work that I did, and it was my job again to make them look like they came fresh off the showroom floor. They smelled like they were off the showroom floor, like they just bought it, and say they had a party the night before and there was whatever. It was you know, that's my job. I had to make it look like it came off a showroom floor. I know, like, I'm telling you right now, I already know. I was damn good, but at the same time, I know there was no way I could have cleaned a car that good to get. I mean, I'm sure I missed a piece of glitter, some, you know, like way deep inside. You know, I'm sure I missed a piece of glitter. You know, that was my biggest pet peeve. I couldn't stand it when I'd be getting in to do vehicles and there's glitter. It's some of the worst to try and get rid of when you're doing that kind of work. But that's the thing. Like, just think how big a little piece of glitter is, and you're talking about a piece of DNA that you can't even see with the naked eye, way smaller than that piece of glitter. And how are you supposed to be able to clean it that effectively to the point where when investigators take over the car, you know, they rip that whole thing apart little piece by little piece, just swabbing for some DNA? Nothing. I don't understand how.
Yeah. And somebody made a comment about his shower curtain. Look, I don't have a shower curtain. I don't like shower curtains. I don't have one. In fact, my shower was made to not have one because I don't like that moldy stuff. I don't like shower curtain. So people leap that just because there wasn't a shower curtain in his shower in his bathroom, that he used it for the crime. No, especially the way he's described, but you know, that autism motion on the death penalty, the way that he's described in that motion, he most likely wouldn't want a shower curtain. I mean, if he's you know, I mean, if he's OCD, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why people would just say things like that. I heard the shower curtain just recently on mainstream media. I don't know who said it, Nancy Grace or somebody. And I thought, stop with the shower curtain. They didn't even find a shower curtain. It'd be one thing if they found a shower curtain outside the house.
Like, there's a reason Batman didn't wear a shower curtain, because his ass would have got caught up. All right.
The absence of a shower curtain in the apartment leads to he used it in the crime.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Joe Dirt. Just like delivering the pizza with the 3-point turn, showing up with a shower curtain, you know, it's just the Bissell backpack.
I was listening to Audrey's channel earlier today, and I think CJ, you made a comment like that the car was like on a fashion show, like turning around, walking, going back and forth.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, that's what I thought I heard. That it was modeling.
That's so funny.
It doesn't make sense. Again, like the drive, it just, if you look, you don't, even the low level criminal would know that is dumb. You know, that's why I'm saying somebody at Burger King that never even thought about it before would be like, yeah, this is a dumb way to do it.
And of all things, you know, I don't like shower curtains, and I would not have one. And this is why it gets to me whenever somebody brings up that shower curtain. It's like, I'm like, that doesn't, like, what are they going to say? My shower doesn't have a shower curtain, so therefore I used it in a crime. What?
Do you know how much trace or transfer DNA would be on that shower curtain? It would be worse.
Right? Right?
It'd be so much more DNA. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. DNA that would stick too, because it's already sticking to the shower curtain.
The king and
God.
queen, the king
Uh,
and queen intersection is a runway.
Somebody make a Dickie suit BK with a shower curtain cape, you know? Because that's my gosh.
With the mask.
And
He wrapped himself in the shower curtain to do the crime.
And no DNA of the victims anyway. You know?
No.
Like, bro. Like, seriously, if you're that good, if you're that good and you did it, just admit to it and write a damn book, because it's going to be like a bestseller.
Right?
You know what I mean? How I did this and got away. You know,
Yeah.
like I got out of there. Like, and this is how I did it. Because I'm telling you right now, there's going to be people in all over that are just going to sit there and go, wow, I never knew that this is how you did it. Like, that's the approach. Like, the shower, like it. Bring a shower curtain to a crime scene, right?
You bring your shower curtain that you use to take a shower, and your DNA is all over that.
Yeah.
It, you know,
you're so right, because
go ahead.
Go ahead, Yolie.
Oh no, like I said, it would be one thing if there was a shower curtain found somewhere, you know, and maybe that might be a basis to say that maybe he used his own shower curtain, and then I don't know, but there's no shower curtain in this crime at all that I know of. I mean, so why would they assume that he used it if he doesn't have it? He doesn't have it because he's probably like me. He probably doesn't like the shower curtain. No.
Well, what if, who says he takes showers? What if he just takes baths?
Yeah, that's the other thing. We don't know.
You know what I mean? Like, what if he's a dude that just enjoys a bath? You know, are you gonna get a shower curtain because you never take a shower? No. Boom. He's guilty. Like, come on. It's ridiculous. It is. But yeah, if let me know. I want to schedule that show where all of us can join together, and I do the CC Moore episode, and then I have some other things that because I'll be digging into my old work that I had from back then, and I'll get a couple chunks of some other things too. And I would love to have you guys on, so let me know you know in the background or whatever when that would be possible, whatever you guys got open for the next week, because I would love to sit back. I think it would be beneficial too, that for a lot of people that because you can't explain it in just a minute, and I know sometimes it is a lot, and it's very there is a lot to it, but these I really feel like the jury's going to be okay when it comes to how they're going to break it down, because they already know, they already know that they're scientists. They already know the work that they do. They already know that most people don't know what the hell they're even talking about, or probably some of the terms. And so they're already used to going to conferences and talking to the general knowledge person, so they can kind of understand it a little bit better. So I think it'll be okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So let me see here. Let's go to this poll. I'm interested to see how many people voted. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. So at the end of the poll, 85%, 117 votes, and thank you for your votes. 117 votes, and 84% said no, they've never submitted their DNA for consent.
Wow.
That's crazy. I would think it would be like 60-40, right?
Wait, what was the poll again?
So the poll is have you ever submitted your DNA for consent? And then I was also asking people, do you regret that you did that. And it was what I asked everybody in the beginning of the show. And Kathy and Audrey kind of discussed it, and it's crazy. We didn't even start talking about that until Yolie was bringing it up back then, because she was discussing the whole process and everything, and kind of had your own weird, odd situation too that came from that as well.
Weird.
So, yeah.
And I through what's her name, Vargas, one of the witnesses that testified in the IGG hearing, had mentioned how to opt out of having law enforcement, check your DNA. And I did what she said, and it was hard. I mean, it's not something you would know automatically. You have to go through the menu and opt out. So I opted out of that, and I opted out of my DNA being used for research, because I kept getting these weird emails about, did you play an instrument before 7 years of age? Did you? It's just crazy, crazy questions.
Yeah, it had to be creepy too, and then this, the other stuff as well. It was like, whoa, this is, and it would be neat, I'm not gonna lie, like, it would be neat to find heritage that you didn't know about, or know more about your ancestry that you didn't know, or maybe even run into long lost loved ones or something. But at the same time, just think of how important your card number is, and then that's important, right? And then you're talking about your card number of your molecular structure. That's a lot. That's some powerful information. Very powerful.
I had like 1% unknown DNA. I don't know what that is.
Wow.
Yeah. What does that mean, Audrey?
It's
alien?
That's
Alien.
why it didn't qualify, because it showed up unknown, right?
You have ghost DNA.
They took the 1%. They took the
Yeah.
1% and ran with it. All right.
So cool that you have ghost DNA. I want ghost DNA too.
I know. The invisible man, right? You gotta use medical rap for people to see the outline of your head.
Well, ghost DNA is real.
Oh shit! Is it really? I didn't know that. I thought we were doing a joke. Is it really real, ghost DNA?
Well, I don't know what it's called, but I have one.
Real. They
The what?
So they cracked the genome of the Neanderthal, and there's also the Denisovans that were found in Russia, and they realized that the Denisovans have an ancestor where they received genes from them, but we don't know anything about where they inherited these genes. So these genes that we can see that were inherited, they call that ghost DNA. And so maybe you have some of those genes from the ancestors they don't know anything about. They can just see their genes.
Yeah. So like I'm 45% indigenous or Native American. It said Native American, but then they changed it to indigenous. And then I'm like 50% South European. And then there's a mixture of some other stuff like from Africa. I think everybody has that. And then there's that 1% that is unknown.
A descendant.
That's so cool. You have an ancestor. A
Denisovan? A what again?
They
acetaminophen?
like Denisovan.
Okay. Have you done it?
Like the name Dennis?
Have you done a show on it before?
What?
Like an episode?
I've briefly mentioned ghost DNA before, and these Denisovans, they were found in Russia, I think, and then they figured out they're from Polynesia, and Polynesia has very high elevation, so these Denisovans have the genes where they can breathe way up there, and it's very easy for them. Where not everybody has those genes where they can breathe at high altitudes.
My mind is blown right now. My mind
As
is
soon as
blown
I
right now.
found that there's ghost DNA, I had to read all about it,
Mhm.
Man,
I'm gonna read about it.
Decenifin. Wild stuff. I just thought we were joking. I never knew. But I'm definitely going to be looking up stuff about ghost DNA now.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure it's a rabbit hole. I'm sure it is a rabbit hole, isn't it? I bet. But yeah, you can't go all the way back to Adam and Eve. It stops somewhere. Right.
Yeah.
So Decenifin.
Yeah, we don't have a fossil library for everything. We barely have a fossil library for the Denisovans, but they do have, I think, at least 2 bones that they were able to extract DNA from. And there's that whole thing where it was crossbreeding between the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens. Very little bit, but our DNA is mixed with those. And so they were able to see, I think, a little bit of Neanderthal with the Denisovans as well. But those are very low rates. It's not very high.
Yeah. Yeah, because we do have those creepers that go to barns. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. That's it.
I mean, I'm just to say that it's yeah.
No, seriously, Busby is saying after this he's only shopping online. Seriously, I mean, I'd have second thoughts about touching things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you can just breathe or walk by, and the skin cells are falling off of our bodies when we move, so we don't really need to touch anything. And somebody from WSU could have just walked by Brian, and then they could have come in contact with somebody from the University of Idaho, and then they came in contact with the frat person, and then they went in the house. It could be like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The chain of transfer is unknown. It's too complex for anybody to figure out, and you just never know how.
And I think that's what they need to focus on in the trial, is that hammer that, that there's no way it's not like blood DNA. It's not like DNA from blood.
Right.
It's not.
That's what I would keep saying. This is not like DNA from blood, which there was an unknown male DNA blood on the handrail and unknown male DNA. I keep saying that over and over again.
Yeah.
I would just, any minute I would insert that. Any chance I had, I would insert the blood DNA that was from other people. The blood DNA versus I mean,
it's a good thing that BK's wasn't blood DNA, because that would have been disqualified too, and then we would have had nobody. We would have had nobody.
We would have.
Nobody.
But you see,
it wasn't blood.
Yeah, it's just that blows me away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It wait until the next show. I think I'm going to be doing it tomorrow night. I'm debating on another show I might do, but if we do talk Idaho for tomorrow night, I'm going to show you guys how the A&W photo that they are claiming they used, I'm going to show you how it's absolute BS, and there's no absolute way that you're going to see any kind of a photo to tell you if that's his car or not. It's just not going to happen. I went through some of my footage I never put out, and I came across it on accident, and I was like, oh, here we go. Here's the part that I've been needing to explain this. And so I'm gonna show you photos from
That's
during the day and
exciting.
that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do that. But yeah, let me know. Let's here in the near future. Let's do an episode on DNA and some of those experts, especially CC Moore discussing it, and we can it'll be a good refresher again to kind of go over it as well because there's a lot to it. But I think she does a really great job breaking it all down. And I want to say thank you guys for breaking all these documents down. You all do a great job. I love having you guys on the show. And thank you all for all the hard work that you guys are doing in your own individual paths out there. It means a lot to us.
You're welcome, CJ. Thank you.
Thanks.
It's a pleasure
Dwight.
being on here tonight. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry I was late. Just
Thank
work.
you.
Oh, I know you're busy. You gotta handle that, and then anytime that you're able to, we definitely appreciate it. Always. And here's their links. Go sub to them if you're not. And also, Kathy has that podcast that you can click on that link too. And I want to just say thank you all for being here. Appreciate you guys. Have a peaceful, positive evening. We got some boots on the ground coming up here shortly, and a lot of reporting to do from courtrooms. So let's get ready. Love you guys.
Yep.
Appreciate you.
Good night.
Have a
Bye.
good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.
Someone shot there. Alright, the ET doesn't take pictures of the, is it domestic related?